You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah, and it is Sheldon Jones, the Two and Out CFL podcast, as we are at the final weekend of the CFL regular season. Can you believe we're here, Sheldon?
I can't believe it. It's sad, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, the playoffs are always bittersweet because the football's always a little bit more intense, but we know that we're not going to be here twice a week, no matter how sometimes I get exhausted and ready to retire from retire is a strong word. I shouldn't use that word. But man, it was a long road and a lot went on this season. This might have been one of the wildest sort of newsworthy seasons, from Sean Lemon to Chad Kelly to everything in between. Right from the get-go, it was a crazy season that I think we'll remember for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's by far the most bizarre season I can remember, maybe other than when the U.S. expansion happened. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, I think we've been pretty lucky with how entertaining the season has been. I know there's some certain things that have happened that haven't been great, but at the same time, they say that, any news is good news, I guess, when it comes to certain things, and when it comes to popularity and giving us something to talk about, and hearing from fans of ours. It's still weird for me to say fans of ours that actually like listening to us, and can't wait to fire up one of our pods. So it's really cool, and let's hope the playoffs live up to the how good the season was.
And, I always think about the controversial moments from the season as well. I think about what was the most controversial one for you? Is it the Adam Bighill as the game expired against, Shea Patterson and the Riders? Maybe it was just because it was two heated rivals.
Yeah,
I guess the command center might have been the story or one of the major stories of the season. Is there anything else that comes to the top of your head?
No, just I guess the Big Hill hit was what it was. I was fired up at the time, but I think the command center is the thing, but not just the command center, just the CFL, just changing things up on the fly and introducing new mandates and making it seem like they had to, fix things as they were happening, certain things, and then not fixing other things. And so it's just, there's a lot of drama. There was a lot of, fan bases getting upset when calls wouldn't go their way, when they would see it go another way. And I think the biggest thing for me is probably the Ottawa Rider game, when the game was over and then, it wasn't. And that was a little bit of a down thing for me, because, I'm a Rider fan, as everyone knows, and they're playing this week, and they need a team to lose and for them to win to get first. Well, if they would have won that game like they did technically before a command center penalty, then we might not be having the same situation. But at least we have a couple, hopefully 2 meaningful games this season, and not just this week, and not just one.
There were other moments this season, like Chris Jones getting fired by the Edmonton Elks, then going to Hamilton and being a part of, I guess, I know they're not in the playoffs, but they played some good football down the stretch. After Labor Day, they swept the Toronto Argonauts, which is unbelievable. There were Guinness World Records broken this year, the fastest time, that all 9 CFL stadiums have been visited. A moth crashed the podcast with Sheldon. I'm just looking at some of the memories from this season. Oh, the John Gott bobblehead we gave away on the show. Oh, there was so much going on this year. 2024 was a season to remember. And of course, we do have the playoffs still to come here. Now, Sheldon, you mentioned about, fans of the show and people writing into the show. And it's always this time of year when, I reflect on the season that was, and there's also listeners and viewers that reflect on the season that was, and I love it. We got such a good community that listens to the show, and we got an email here from Megan, who went to twoandout.ca and used the mailbag feature there. And she writes, "Hi Sheldon and Travis, I just wanted to let you know how much our family loves your podcast. My 9-year-old son and I listen to your podcast while we work on a puzzle during the week before bed. We've tried other CFL podcasts, but yours is the only one he wants to listen to. I mean, he's an Alouettes fan, so can we really trust his judgment? But I'm a Ticats fan, and his dad's a Lions fan, and we all cheer for the Elks since they're now our hometown team. So really, what do any of us know? Anyway, thanks for all the great commentary and analysis every week. We really appreciate all the hard work you both put into the podcast. Thank you, Megan." I must say that absolutely made my day today to read, and I never thought that I'd have a fulsome family show. But here we are, man. I just love that the listening to the show right before bed. I don't know. Hopefully it's not so boring that you want to go to sleep afterwards, but that made me feel pretty good, man.
Yeah, me too. And then even just last week, I gave a shout out to our little cousin on here, and then we got a message asking if, I was talking about a certain person in a certain town, because of course I was, and now we've found another listener who did a tour of service with my cousin Trent, so it's really cool to just hear that we have fans who know family members and stuff like that. So it never ceases to amaze me the reach we're able to have with what I just think is my couple hours a week where you get to chat with my bud about football, but then we have to we think, and then we get to see that there's a lot of people from around the world who are actually listening to the sound of our voice. So it's pretty humbling and pretty exciting at the same time.
On our YouTube channel last week, there was a comment from James Murphy. Now, I don't know if this is like the James Murphy, the Winnipeg Blue Bomber legend James Murphy, 1984, 1988, 1990 Grey Cup champion James Murphy, CFL Most Outstanding Player James Murphy in 1986. I doubt it. But it could be. I'd love to have you on the pod, James. Have to let you guys know that there's no competition for you. The show is well done. No F-bombs or dancing girls. Feels like I met up with you guys at the Four Seasons or the Plains, kick back with a few brews and laugh at each other. Awesome, guys. Hey, that's pretty cool. A lot of times we've been reading comments crapping on you, Sheldon, or us. As a show, so it's nice to go through some good things before the final week of the CFL regular season. Now, what we got so far is the finalists that are going to, move on to round 2 of the selection process when it comes to award season. So they've divided all of these categories into obviously MOP, Most Outstanding Defensive Player, Canadian, lineman, offensive lineman, I should say. I do like what U Sports does. They have linemen. So a D lineman can win that award. Special teams player and rookie. So now each team has one player, and they've dwindled it down now to 6 in each category. We're going to find out on Halloween who moves on. Maybe it'll be the divisional finalists at that point. But 1 out of the 9 teams have a quarterback as MOP, Sheldon. That is bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
No, usually it's like 7 out of the 9 teams have their starting quarterback as as their MOP. It's strange, but at the same time, it makes sense. There's been injuries this season. There's been just all around other players that have just been rising to the occasion. So it's interesting seeing the players. I think the most interesting thing that I noticed right off the bat is that in Montreal, Tyrese Beverett was named a unanimous choice for most outstanding player, yet he was not unanimous for most outstanding defensive player. So I don't know if somebody in Montreal is just trying to vote split and being like, oh, I want to get Sankey a vote or something, which, that's fine. But, this is real. Like, if somebody deserves to be a most outstanding player, then obviously there was your best defensive player. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, that is that is weird. And we look at Roland Milligan Jr. of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He's their nominee for defense, outstanding player, and also special teams. And he was unanimous. And was he unanimous in all three categories?
Yep, all three. Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder if that's ever happened, a player getting three. Like, because, you would think that a Canadian and another player group, you could see that happening, but to have somebody having three of them and being unanimous, be outstanding, wouldn't you say?
I really think it's going to go that way.
I think it's going to go him against Bo. That's what I think it'll be.
But that's still a crazy final. You know what I mean? Like, that is totally unpredictable. The last few years, especially last year, I know Toronto cleaned up at the awards and they weren't in the game the year before. And actually the past few years, Winnipeg has been, dominating awards night and things like that. And Tyrell Ford actually gets the defensive player nomination for Winnipeg, right up there in interceptions. He had a great year. Actually, DBs, for the most part, did very well there. Gary Peters getting the nomination for BC, Jamal Peters for the Ticats, and Deshaun Amos for the Argos. That one does look like it's going to be Beverett versus Milligan in the final. That's what I would think. Most outstanding Canadian, man, it's probably coming down to Justin McInnes out of BC, I would think, but he's got to get past Brady, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Brady's finish, I think, is kind of, because Justin McInnes, he started really hot and then he's kind of plateaued a little bit, whereas Brady Oliveira is kind of done the opposite. So I think that's going to resonate with voters more, just seeing Brady perform a lot better later on in the season. But yeah, out of the East though, I don't know who's gonna, maybe. I
kind of wonder if they're gonna go
Adamany
Bergeland.
Yeah.
Drew Desjardins out of Ottawa. I'm not sure, but that's a tough one.
Yeah.
And I think offensive line is wide open here. Stanley Bryant, sort of the perennial winner, but he wasn't as dominant this year as we've seen in his career. Yeah. There's movement for Martez Ivey out of Edmonton, but I maybe Revenberg out of Hamilton. He might be, I think, the guy there, but that's an interesting one, and I think it's wide open in the West.
Yeah, I don't want to just sound like a Riders homer, but Logan Ferland, I think, could have a chance here too, because not only did he play well in his actual position, but he was the guy to go in and cover for Peter Godber when he got hurt at center. And I think you could arguably say that the best offensive line group that the Riders have fielded is with Logan Ferland at center. So but it's going to be tough for him to get past Stanley Bryant still. And like you said, Martez Ivey has had a heck of a year, and then probably Drew Desjardins in the East, but Ryan Hunter, he did really well too. That's a wide open one for sure.
Now I look at the special teams list, and I'm gonna say that the guys that are near the top of the list in special teams tackles. I don't find that they usually get the love in this category. No. Usually it's the returners or the kickers. So I think Milligan might actually be in tough for that. I wonder if wow. You got to look at Janarian Grant, man. Like he had a great year. But yeah, I think you brought up a great point when it comes to the McInnes and Oliveira thing. I think memories are short. So even if somebody in the first 9 games had 1,100 yards or something like that, and I'm just pulling that number out of the hat, and they had 300 the rest of the way, I think folks would forget about that. But Sean White, he had the big streak, the big field goal streak, but still 94% on field goals this year, 94.3. He actually had identical numbers to last year, 50 field goals on 53 attempts. And he got the nominee last year. I actually talked to him in Niagara Falls after the award ceremony. He was rattled. So we'll see. I hope he's hydrating, and I hope he wins, because he's an entertaining guy in this league. And I hope he takes some Diet Cokes or whatever and licorice on stage with him, because Sean White, 39 years old, I'd love to see him get it. And then most outstanding rookie, I actually think it might be Nick Anderson out of Edmonton. He's basically got 100 tackles there. He could get 6 more this weekend, but there were some solid rookies. Ontario Wilson out of Winnipeg stands out to me. Mackay Polk in Toronto, Shamar Bridges in Hamilton. If he played all 18 games, he might be a lock for that. And then Khalil Pimpleton, it's too bad he didn't play all the games for Ottawa as well. But there are some names we've talked a lot about this year as rookies, so that's cool either way, no matter who wins that award.
Yeah, and again, I got to give love to Trevor Reed, because he started as a tackle as a rookie, and that's pretty tough to do too. But I agree with you. I think Shamar Bridges would have walked away with this if he would have kept his pace. And same with Pimpleton. I think Pimpleton had a stellar rookie season, just getting hurt. But Mackay Polk has become like a go-to guy for Chad Kelly in Toronto. So, like this one, I think that there's no clear-cut winner out here, and I think anybody who wins would deserve it. Yeah.
Week 20 is this week 21? It is, of the CFL season. Is a doubleheader on Friday night, and it's a doubleheader on Saturday as the sun sets on the year. The Ottawa RedBlacks are 2.5-point favorites as they host the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The over-under is at 50.5. Now, this game doesn't matter in the standings, Sheldon, but with Ottawa having the Toronto Argonauts on tap in the East semifinal next weekend, and they lost 5 games in a row. They had a big fourth quarter against the Argos last week, almost came back from a pretty big deficit. Are they going to want to have a good game here, or do you think they're just going to keep it pretty vanilla heading into the playoffs?
I think you have to have a balance of it, but at the same time, like, you don't want to be going into the playoffs losing 6 games in a row. And we just need to see if that fire from the end of the game is able to translate into the beginning of this game, because, neither of the teams technically have anything to play for. I know that Bo Levi is going to try to ball out. He's only 350 yards away from his personal best, and he's only 128 or 30 yards away from the Hamilton Tiger Cats all-time season. So I know and plus he's playing for a spot somewhere next year. Maybe it's still in Hamilton, but who knows? But he still has gas left in the tank, obviously, and so he's going to be looking to ball out there. But for everyone on Hamilton, they're playing for next year, and for everyone on Ottawa, they're playing to try to get into the playoffs on a winning note, or at least showing improvement. And like they need to. They they can't just go into the playoffs losing 6 games in a row and expect to beat Toronto, who's arguably one of the 2 top teams in the league right now.
Devontae Dedmon is listed as available on the injury report for the RedBlacks, so I don't know if they'll get him in there this week, but either way, having him available heading into the playoffs, one of the most dynamic players in the CFL, is good news for our nation. If you can take anything away from the back half of the season for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, is that I think they've found something pretty good in Greg Bell, and I don't know if that is the defenses across the league trying to shut down the passing attack of the Ticats or the strong offensive line, or all of it combined into one. But Greg Bell has 6.4 yards a carry. If you extended his season across all 18 games, he would be the leading rusher in the CFL in 2024, which is pretty wild. So we can talk about the quarterback situation in Hamilton. There was a point this season when I thought Bo might be done, and maybe done in the league. Now I'm not so sure. I think that I don't know what's gone on behind the scenes. It did appear like there was some friction between Milanovic and Bo, to say the least. But maybe they found some common ground, and maybe they will go into this offseason and to next and just see what happens. And maybe James Butler is going to be hitting the market in this offseason, now that they've got Greg Bell rolling. But what do you think the Ticats are going to do with those quarterbacks?
I don't know, because I think I'm pretty sure Bo took a pay cut to stay there this season, and I think he deserves to get a little bit of a bump with how he's played. I just don't know. Like, if you're Bo, do you want to try to put yourself in a situation where you have a coach who maybe is going to have a quick pull on you and not let a short leash, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because he's shown that he had that earlier in the season, but at the same time, do you want to have to go to another whole system and try to build up just build up I can't think of the word.
Chemistry?
Jeez. Yes, chemistry. Build up some chemistry with the other, with new players. But actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see, maybe if he does stay in Hamilton, them try to get Reggie Bagleton to come over there and, maybe get the dynamic duo back together to get one kick at trying to end the CFL's longest Grey Cup drought.
Calgary's nominee for most outstanding player in 2024, Reggie Bagleton. If we look at Ottawa's side, Justin Hardy needs 127 yards to be the CFL's leading receiver. Do you think Drew Brown and the RedBlacks are going to be feeding him the ball early and often to get him to that mark? I kind of think that they will. I mean, if you're filling out a fantasy lineup, Justin Hardy's been pretty reliable all year. Maybe that's what they try.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It kind of reminds me of back in the day when they were still the Renegades, and I think Kerry Joseph was trying to hit a certain goal, and Joe Powell kept throwing him in there because he wanted to get him to get that goal. When you don't have the playoffs to play for, I think the teams are going to rally around certain things like that. And if you can get Justin Hardy that keeps him happy, and I don't know his contract status, but maybe something like that will get him to come back, or wherever he goes, if you lead the league in receiving, then you're going to be one of the top prize free agents, right? So everyone in Ottawa, they're going to try their best just to get back to the winning ways before the playoffs, I think, and finding Justin Hardy is a good plan.
Now, Justin Hardy, if he didn't miss a game or two here and there, so he's on a streak right now 4 games in a row over 100 yards. So September 14th, he had 103 against the Ticats, 117 against the Owls on September 21st, 111 against the Riders on September 28th, and then just last week, 102 against the Argos. 130 targets this season, already 3 more targets than last year with this game to go, and he's eclipsed last year's mark by 334 yards. So Justin Hardy's had quite the year with 16 games played. If he didn't miss one game, then he'd be probably flirting with 1,600 yards. Pretty impressive year, I think, under the radar a little bit in Ottawa by Justin Hardy. Not getting enough credit, but we'll give him the credit here on the show. That is Ticats and RedBlacks happening on Friday night. And then also Friday night in Edmonton. Looking forward to seeing that traveling Argos crew that seems to be going to every Argo game. They're going to be rolling into Commonwealth Stadium for their final game of the regular season. The Elks are actually 1.5 point favorites. The over-under is 49.5. I do not envy anybody that has to make betting lines on games like this towards the end of the year. I think this is definitely one on the road where the Argos are probably going to be resting some guys. I think Kadeem Carey was probably going to be rested. He's, had back spasms here and there, and they want him healthy for the playoffs because the East, no matter what, no matter who they play, it's going to be physical games against Ottawa and against the Alouettes. You want your running game in tip-top shape for those games. Mackay Polk, he's 98 yards away from 1,000. Early in the year, I would say that the Elks gave up a lot more of those big plays, and Polk would have a chance at getting, 150 in this game. But as the season went on, the defense was forcing more turnovers and not having as many Elk explosions, but could be a milestone that the Argos want Polk to reach. But maybe it's Cam Dukes behind center for the Argos at Commonwealth. Now, we talked about the Ticats and their running game heading into next year. Maybe it's going to be Greg Bell, but that's a question for the Elks as well. 3-headed attack, 4-headed attack at times this year with Trey Ford at quarterback, and then, of course, Justin Rankin, Kevin Brown, and Javon Leake.
Yeah.
Rankin maybe looks like that guy going into next year if they want to have a feature back, if they're going to be leaning one way anyway.
Yeah, he's certainly, for lack of a better term, taken the ball and ran with it this season whenever given the opportunity. And he's probably going to not be that, he hasn't done it for long enough to make him one of the highest paid guys, so he might be able to save a little bit money there and, maybe have Leake or Brown as a bargaining chip to try to get somebody else. There's a certain quarterback out of BC who's going to be on the trade market as soon as they're out of the playoffs or the Grey Cup is over. So I think going with Rankin would be a good bet, but at the same time, any of those three, as they've shown this year, can get the job done. So whatever way they go, I think Elks fans have a lot to look forward to when it comes to the running game of 2025.
So we talked about Greg Bell's yards per carry average right around 6.5 yards. Well, Justin Rankin's average is right around 8 yards. And that's 86 carries. So over 700 yards in 10 games. He had 3 games where he had a double-digit average. He ran for 77 on 7 carries against the Lions. He ran for 157 on 14 carries against the Bombers. And he ran for 140 on 10 carries against the Stampeders. This guy has been a monster in his opportunities this year. And if he's going to be carrying the ball in 2025, I think Elks fans have something to look forward to. But that brings me to another question. Is this the final game for Trey Ford in green and gold?
Who knows? I wish I could say, like, I can tell you that I think it probably is, just because of if I was him and the way that I was treated and, yo-yoed around there, I would want to maybe go somewhere else. But at the same time, maybe if he is the guy and they don't sign a veteran quarterback right before the season starts, and you don't have a guy named Chris Jones running your team, then maybe if there's some reassurance that you will be the actual guy going forward, then that's something that might bear weight. But I don't know, man. But I know he's going to try to play his heart out to, if it's not Edmonton, that another team is going to try to go after him. So sorry for the cop-out answer, but I don't know.
Well, and do you think that they've already decided? I guess this would be up to the owner, right? Larry Thompson, if G. Roy Simon and Jarius Jackson are going to be back this year. It looked like they were going to earn another year or two or whatever, an extension anyway. Now, I don't know. Will they bring in a whole nother regime? Or will they continue with, what they've got? Because, if they change the whole quarterback room, that almost feels like a new regime, doesn't it? Unless you can bring in a quarterback the caliber of, say, Vernon Adams Jr. or, hey, I don't know, would Trevor Harris go back to Edmonton? I don't know. There might be options.
Oh.
Did you say Bo? Hey, undefeated on Labor Day?
What other way would be a good way to stick it to the Stamps?
Oh, no kidding.
I'm here for that chaos.
That'd be pretty wild. That would be pretty wild. And I'm hoping, Grey Cup week, there's always the rumors swirling, and we'll see what the quarterback rumors are going to be this time around. Curly Gittens Jr. did leave Wednesday's practice in Edmonton after a collision with Kai Gray. We'll see if he'll get into the lineup here. But there's also Geno Lewis. 8 games in a row with the touchdown, which is actually pretty wild, the way he's ended the season. But he signed a 2-year contract a couple years ago, $320,000 a year. Could he be on the market following this year? I don't know if he'll get that sort of payday again. But that's definitely a player that I think 9 teams want on their roster, man.
For sure. And, that is a place where maybe, with Tevin Jones and with Curly Gittens and some of these other guys stepping up, maybe that's a place where you can save some money if you're Edmonton and, let him go somewhere else for a high salary. But he had a slow start, but yeah, he's gone crazy these past 8 games. And even before that, without touchdowns, he was making amazing catches. It's like the Geno Lewis of old.
And a lot of times I don't think it was his fault.
No.
He should have been the first read every play, basically. That's my opinion. If you're paying a guy that much, let him win the battles. A receiver like that, he's built for those battles, one-on-ones with the Gary Peters and Jamal Peters of the league. Let him cook, man. And they didn't do that early in the season, and I thought they would have more. Lately, they have when it was too late, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and especially with the season before when they had Lawler and Eugene, and they just couldn't figure out how to get Eugene involved. So like that's another guy where maybe this he might have had some sour taste in his mouth when it comes to being used, but certainly they've made an effort to have him featured and scoring and getting his targets the back half of the season at least.
I know there's probably somebody commenting on our YouTube right now, but Kenny the King and Gino Lewis were not on the Elks at the same time. If that was a thing, that would be wild.
I thought they were. My bad.
Kenny the King returned to Winnipeg last year.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were there at the same time. My bad.
Hey,
edit it out.
That's all good, man. That's all good. Stop the comments. Coming on Saturday, this is two games that matter, but not for all four teams involved. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, well, the Bombers are 6.5 point favorites in Montreal here. The over-under at 48.5. Much like Ottawa, the Owls kind of stumbling their way into the playoffs. There was a great comment on our YouTube channel saying, all the challenges on Jason Moss to keep the players motivated in games like this. They're obviously looking forward to the East Final. How can you blame them? But I still think they probably want to get some of that magic that they had early on in the season. Cody Fajardo was taking starter reps. Maybe he only plays a half. Maybe that's it. Austin Mack, he missed last game, but he's back at practice. Obviously a valuable piece to have back into the lineup here. What do you see the Alouettes bringing to this final home game of the season for them?
Well, I think just like you said, like Ottawa, they need to show that they have it, and Jason Moss is going to have them do that because you can't go into the playoffs and then have a bye week if you like losing that last game, whether it's meaningless or not in the standings. I think it does set a tone for how that bye week is going to be. And I know that with this bye week so close to playoffs, these players aren't going home. It's not like they're taking a bye week. They're still going to be working. But that if they lay a stinker and let Winnipeg roll all over them and clinch first place, that's going to weigh on them throughout the whole week. And then they have to get ready and watch Toronto and Ottawa and figure out who they're going to prepare for. I just think that, they need to show that they're the team that they were, the first 3 quarters of the season and not the last quarter, because I think all of us thought it was pretty much just a write-off that they were going to be representing the East in the Grey Cup with how well they were playing. And it just seems like whatever happened has kind of just made them plateau and start to go down. Actually, good thing for Rider fans is if Cody's playing in the first half, he needs to show that he's got it. He needs to get back on his game. But at the same time, Davis Alexander's been playing really good too. So I just know that Jason Moss isn't going to let this team roll over and just let Winnipeg win. But at the same time, here's another opportunity for Jason Moss to stick it to his former team.
Yeah,
if there's any sore feelings there, then he can just be like, well, Winnipeg wins, you guys don't get first place.
That's always the tough part about football, where a backup quarterback wants to go in, or he gets put in, and of course he wants to succeed. He wants to make a good impression to get more playing time with his current team or a new team next year. But when they're in that situation, a lot of times they're not playing with the whole starting lineup. So it's kind of I don't know, catch-22. I don't know if that fits that definition, but Davis Alexander is going to come in with full effort, kind of thing like that. It just kind of, we'll see what kind of plays they're going to be calling, if it's just going to be vanilla, because football coaches are paranoid. I think at this point, how many plays do they have up the sleeve that they haven't shown this season? You could probably count it on one hand. They're not going to have an entire new playbook for the East Final, but that's what football coaches do. From the Winnipeg side of things, this is amazing. Zach Collaros is an MOP, a former MOP, twice in a row in the CFL. He only needs 248 passing yards to set a career high. Considering the start of the year, the hole that the Bombers were in, that kind of thing, I didn't think he would be up against that milestone, but here we are nearing the end of the season, and all they need to do is win or tie to clinch that West Final, which has been in Winnipeg since the canceled pandemic season. And winning in Winnipeg in the playoffs, as we've seen, obviously, is a challenge for any team that has to climb that mountain. So home field is so important. I just see maybe the Bombers will go hard at it in the first half, get a lead, and then just kind of play boring football and eat the clock. Brady Oliveira, they can use him to pound the rock. The Alouettes are giving up on average 120 rush yards a game. I think maybe that's how this game is going to play out. Of course, anything can happen. Maybe there's a fumbled snap or a botched punt here and there. We don't know. But that's just kind of seems what would happen. But I do know if Winnipeg loses this game, the Stamps will beat the Riders.
Yeah, you're right. That is exactly what happened. The thing is, I think the game is going to go exactly like you say. I think they're going to get a lead, and but Winnipeg is not. They're not a team that doesn't make mistakes. They do make mistakes. It's just oftentimes the teams don't make them pay for it. Montreal is a defense that is going to make you pay for it, even if it's the backups in. I think they just have a culture of being ball hawks, so anything can happen. And we saw Ottawa put 24 points in the fourth quarter last week. So even if the Bombers get into a lead and then both teams go to their backups, then it's the battle of the backups and anything can happen. So I just, as Rider fans, obviously we're going to be holding our breath and watching that game, but at the same time, the Riders could have done a lot of different things and made this not happen, and could have clinched first a number of different ways. So maybe this is the way that it's supposed to be, and the Riders are supposed to go into Winnipeg in the West Final if they can get there. But I'm just happy that this game is going to actually mean something for at least the first half, or however long it does. Because
are you going to the West Final?
Football is better
if
it's in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
No.
Now
I got the Grey Cup money. I got to save.
It's close to the Grey Cup. I don't want to write off Vernon Adams Jr.
Oh no, I'm not, because I fear Vernon Adams a lot more than I fear Nathan Rourke right now.
Yeah. That Rider game, it only matters if Winnipeg loses. If they win, this Roughrider Stampeder game is really just there to finish off the season. Do you see Trevor Harris's playing time depending entirely on what happens in that first game? I mean, obviously, is he going to play at all, I guess, if Winnipeg wins?
Yeah, I think he'd probably, if Winnipeg wins, he'll probably play the first quarter. I don't think they would, they're going to game plan for him the whole week because of the chance of them being able to clinch first. So you can't just throw away your game plan and then just, we're going to put in Jake Cohen for so I think he's going to probably at least get the first quarter. Then you probably throw Patterson in there for the 2 and 3. And then I hope if Winnipeg does win, I hope that we do see Jake Cohen, because I want to see what he can do. Trevor Harris was talking to, I think, Rob Vanstone this week and said that he is going to be a future franchise quarterback. So I'd like to see what they're seeing in practice from him. And but at the same time, I don't care who plays. I just don't want to see any injuries. That's the only thing that I'm looking for.
Throughout most of the season, especially early on, the Riders got into a lot of injury problems, especially in the trenches. Peter Godber limited in practice so far this week. I did read that Jamarcus Hardrick was ready to push some people around. Do you think he might be ready for the playoffs, or is it a Grey Cup sort of thing?
I would say it'd probably be at least the West Final before because he actually hasn't been in there. He's been at practice, but you can't just go in there and not practice and then play it. Like, that's what happened to Nathan Rourke, and look what happened the first season, or the first game he came back. So I think it's wishful thinking to see Yoshi back this season at all, but stranger things have happened. Look at what happened this season. But the other thing that they kind of need to weigh in on is the Riders' offensive line has been gelling for the past few games and doing really well. So I know it's good to get Godber back in there, and then you could move Ferland to a different position, and then getting a Canadian back on the O-line, then maybe you could put in Ouellette and Armstead in the backfield. But are you going to risk that to bring in to change up the consistency? That's why I'm glad I'm not a head coach and don't have to make these decisions, because once you have consistency and once you have a team that's rolling, like, do you really want to mess with that?
Now, we'll see if the Riders will get that running game rolling. The Stampeders giving up 129 rush yards a game. I mean, if the Riders just want to get through this game quickly and not have any injuries, maybe running the ball is a pretty good strategy in this one to hopefully get out of the game unscathed, although injuries happen in any play in football, but that has to be the number one concern. I know there was some excitement and maybe some talk that PJ Walker could see some time at quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders this season, but Dave Dickinson confirming that he will not play in the regular season finale for the Calgary Stampeders. So we'll see if Bonner gets time, but Matthew Schultz didn't practice on Tuesday either. Logan Bonner threw 5 picks against his start against the Elks in September. So it will be him / Mayer, but this certainly feels like it could be Jake Mayer's last game suiting up in red and white as well.
Yeah, I think the election's been called, and it doesn't look like the incumbent is going to survive. I think...
You remember the first 2 quarterbacks basically to get guaranteed money with that new CBA, Sheldon? It was Jake Mayer and Taylor Cornelius. And here we are.
Yeah, I kind of want to just throw in the prices right when it comes to this whole PJ Walker thing, because they traded away draft picks for him, and now they have to release him at the end of the year, basically, because he'll be on the practice roster. So he'll be free to sign anywhere next year. It's not like they retain his rights or anything. And it's like he got to come up and see what Calgary is, and that's it. And I think PJ Walker could be a really good quarterback in the CFL. So it'll be interesting to see if they even have a chance to have him come to training camp next year. It just seems like another fumble.
Waiting or hoping for that NFL opportunity.
For sure. Yeah, for sure he is. Yeah.
And maybe that's it.
Yeah, because if he would have played in the game, he wouldn't be eligible to join an NFL team.
Yeah. We know the old Wally Buono drawer contract. I don't know. Maybe Dave Dickinson is coming from that school of thought, and they've got the old contract in the drawer ready to go if the NFL doesn't work out between now and the end of the season there for PJ Walker.
Maybe, but they could have had that the whole time because they could have just kept him on their negotiation list and waited until training camp next year. Like, I think they probably found out after he got here that he wanted to keep his NFL options open for the rest of the season. And so I'm not saying it's all on the Stampeders. Maybe Walker wasn't straightforward in what he was saying, but at the same time, it comes down to your due diligence. It comes down to making sure that you're making the right choice as a general manager. When you're going to trade away draft picks to get a negotiation list player and then you sign him, you need to make it so that it's worth it, and it just doesn't seem like it is right now. But who knows? Maybe they do have that contract ready to go, and maybe he liked what he saw in Calgary. Who knows? But like, I just hope that if he does come back to the CFL next year and he gets a chance, and like, he could be a future star in the making.
Either way, that locker room in Calgary didn't mesh in 2024, and that goes without saying. I don't think there's ever been a 4-win team that has meshed. I mean, we saw last week, was it Cam Judge? He took a misconduct penalty and then he basically headbutt his teammate on the sidelines after that. That was a crazy moment, and I understand that they shook hands after that, but there's going to be
Judge. We've seen Judge be a hothead before.
Yeah, there's going to be big changes in Calgary. That defense could not stop the run this year. I think the D-line couldn't get to the quarterback. So I do think that Micah Alway and Cameron Judge are talented linebackers, but
for sure,
it wasn't happening this year. And once running back started rolling against them, they got absolutely dominated in that part of their game, and they couldn't fix it. So I'm sure Stamps fans are excited to see this season come to an end and then flush it down the toilet. And hopefully sunnier days are ahead in 2025. That brings us to the end of the CFL regular season, week 21. The Ticats, the RedBlacks, the Argos, the Elks, the Bombers, the Owls, the Riders, and the Stamps. Sheldon, I am taking the Riders, the Bombers, the Elks, and I'll take the RedBlacks. I don't know if I'm confident about that, honestly, but this could be a crazy week or it could be very predictable. Where are you going?
I think I have Hamilton, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Saskatchewan.
There it is. I'm Travis Currah. He is Sheldon Jones. You can visit the website, twoandout.ca. All the pods are posted there. You can find our Patreon. You can write to the show. And you can check out our merch shop as well. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out in your favorite podcatcher. And check out the show on YouTube. We're nearing 600 subscribers. We're 12 away. That'd be pretty cool if we could do that by the time the Grey Cup rolls around. Take care of yourself and each other. We'll wrap up 2021 at the end of the week. Week 21 at the end of the weekend.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.